If you own a BMW, you've probably heard completely opposite advice about transmission fluid. Some say never touch it. Some say change it every 30,000 miles. Others say BMW calls it lifetime fluid, so leave it alone. And that confusion is exactly why so many BMW owners end up with slipping transmissions and $8,000 repair bills. I'm Mike from Forever BMW, and today I'm going to explain exactly when you should change your BMW's transmission fluid, when you absolutely should not, and why doing it at the wrong time can quietly destroy a perfectly good ZF gearbox. Watch till the end, because one mistake I see owners make over and over again quietly turns a healthy ZF gearbox into an $8,000 rebuild. Let's start with the most important question. What transmission does your BMW actually have? Before anyone talks about changing fluid, one thing has to be clear. What transmission is actually in your BMW? Most modern BMWs use ZF automatic transmissions, typically the ZF 6HP in older models and the ZF 8HP in newer ones. And here's where the confusion starts. BMW calls the fluid lifetime. ZF, the company that actually engineered the transmission, recommends service around 60,000 to 80,000 miles, depending on usage. That contradiction is why owners get mixed advice. If your BMW has no dipstick and uses a sealed plastic pan with an integrated filter, you are dealing with a transmission that is extremely dependent on fluid condition for hydraulic pressure and clutch control. These units rely on precise friction characteristics. The fluid isn't just oil, it's the hydraulic medium that controls every shift. I've seen owners assume all BMW transmissions are the same. They're not. A 6HP behaves differently from an 8HP. Service strategy changes depending on which unit you have. Before you make any decision about changing fluid, you need to know exactly what's under your car, because the wrong assumption is where expensive mistakes begin. The real mileage rule. Most BMW owners miss. Once you know you're dealing with a ZF 6HP or 8HP, the next question is simple. When should it actually be serviced? Here's the rule I follow after years of seeing these units age in the real world. If your BMW has been maintained from early mileage, transmission fluid and filter should be serviced around 60,000 to 70,000 miles, not 100,000. Not whenever it feels rough. On time? Time matters too. If the car is over 6 to 8 years old, even with low mileage, the fluid has still gone through hundreds of heat cycles. Transmission fluid breaks down from temperature and shear, not just distance. The mistake most owners make is assuming it shifts fine, so it must be fine. Now, before we go further, if this is already clearing up some confusion for you, hit subscribe. Because most BMW owners don't fail because of bad cars. They fail because of bad information. Now, here's the part most people don't realize. ZF transmissions are adaptive. They compensate for gradual fluid degradation. You won't feel early deterioration. By the time you feel it, wear is already advanced. But here's the critical detail. If the car is already sitting at 100,000 miles or more in original fluid, you're no longer talking about routine maintenance. You're talking about risk management. And that's where the most expensive transmission mistakes happen. The $8,000 late service mistake. This is the part nobody explains clearly. A BMW reaches 105,000 or 120,000 miles on original transmission fluid. It's still shifting smoothly. No warning lights, no obvious problems. Then the owner reads online that fluid should have been changed earlier and decides to do the right thing. That's when things can go wrong. At high mileage, the clutch packs inside the transmission have worn gradually. The valve body has adapted. The transmission control module has learned pressure corrections over thousands of cycles. Everything is balanced, not perfect, but stable. When all the old fluid is suddenly replaced, especially with a full flush, that balance is disturbed. Within weeks, sometimes days, you may notice delayed engagement when shifting into drive, harsh shifts between second and third or third and fourth gear, torque converter shudder at low speeds, or adaptation and pressure fault codes appearing out of nowhere. And then comes the estimate. A full ZF rebuild can run $6,000 to $8,000, sometimes higher depending on model. The fluid change didn't cause the wear. It exposed wear that was already there. That's why timing is everything. Early service extends life. Late service can accelerate failure. To understand why, you have to look at what's actually happening inside the transmission. What really happens inside a BMW ZF transmission. To understand why timing matters so much, you need to understand what transmission fluid actually does inside a BMW. In a ZF 6HP or 8HP, Fluid isn't just lubrication. It serves three critical roles. First, it acts as a hydraulic medium. Every shift you feel is controlled by pressurized fluid applying clutch packs with precise force. Second, it cools internal components. Under normal driving, transmission temperatures can sit between 180 degrees Fahrenheit and 220 degrees Fahrenheit. During spirited driving or towing, temperatures climb even higher. Third, it controls friction behavior. The fluid's additive package determines how smoothly clutch plates engage. Over tens of thousands of miles, clutch material slowly wears. Tiny particles remain suspended in the fluid. While debris sounds bad, small amounts actually become part of how an aging transmission continues shifting smoothly. At the same time, heat slowly breaks down the fluid's viscosity and friction modifiers. It becomes thinner, less stable under pressure. Too much degradation and pressure drops. Too aggressive or refresh too late, and the transmission loses the environment it adapted to. BMW ZF transmissions don't fail suddenly without warning. They fail when balance is disturbed. And that's why the method you choose matters just as much as the mileage. Flush versus drain and fill, not the same thing. This is where many BMW owners make the wrong choice. A transmission flush and a proper service are not the same. A flush forces nearly all old fluid out rapidly by pushing new fluid through the system under pressure. On paper, that sounds ideal. Completely clean system, fresh start. In reality, especially on a BMW with mileage, it can be too aggressive. A ZF transmission that has gone 80,000 or 100,000 miles on one fluid environment has adapted to that chemistry. Forcing nearly 100% new fluid in at once can strip away suspended clutch material and disturb hydraulic equilibrium. That's when slipping or harsh shifts begin. A proper BMW service is very different. It involves removing the transmission pan, replacing the integrated filter that is built into most ZF plastic pans, refilling the unit with the correct ZF spec fluid, and setting the fluid level at a precise temperature, usually between 30 and 50 degrees Celsius. That temperature-controlled fill process is critical because these transmissions are extremely sensitive to fluid level accuracy. A drain and fill replaces part of the fluid while preserving internal stability and adaptation balance. For most BMWs, especially those beyond early mileage, this method is far safer than a full power flush. The wrong procedure can create problems that didn't exist before. Now moving on to the mistake I see owners making the most, and honestly, I don't blame them. Here's why. Dark fluid doesn't mean bad fluid. A BMW owner drops the transmission pan, sees fluid that isn't bright gold anymore, and immediately panics. It's dark. It must be ruined. That's not how this works. ZF transmission fluid naturally darkens over time. Heat cycles and microscopic clutch wear change its color long before its friction characteristics are actually compromised. Color alone is not a reliable indicator of transmission health. What actually matters is shear stability, friction modifier integrity, and contamination levels. I've opened transmissions at 60,000 miles where the fluid looked darker than expected, but was still protecting the clutches perfectly. On the other hand, I've seen fluid that looked clean, but had completely lost its additive strength. Changing fluid too frequently just to keep it looking fresh can actually introduce excessive detergent action inside an aging transmission. Constantly replacing fluid before it stabilizes can disrupt clutch adaptation unnecessarily. BMW transmissions prefer stability, not extremes. Properly timed service protects them. Chasing color does not. And that leads directly into the biggest myth BMW owners believe. The lifetime fluid myth BMW owners believe. The phrase lifetime fluid has caused more confusion than almost any other BMW maintenance topic. When owners hear lifetime, they assume it means forever. It doesn't. In BMW terms, lifetime usually means the expected life of the vehicle under warranty or typical first owner use, not 250,000 miles. ZF, the actual manufacturer of the 6 HP and 8 HP transmissions, does not consider the fluid permanent. They recommend service around 60,000 to 80,000 miles, depending on driving conditions. Transmission fluid operates in a harsh environment. It experiences constant heat cycles, hydraulic pressure spikes, friction from clutch engagement, and shear forces at high RPM. Over time, additives break down. Friction modifiers degrade. Cooling efficiency drops. None of that stops just because the unit is sealed and has no dipstick. Sealed simply means the system is not user serviceable from the engine bay. It does not mean maintenance-free. If lifetime fluid truly meant permanent, BMW transmissions would never fail from fluid-related wear. But they do often between 120,000 and 180,000 miles when never serviced. Understanding that difference between marketing language and mechanical reality changes how you approach maintenance decisions. But there is one situation where changing the fluid can actually make things worse, when you should not change it. This is the part most owners don't expect to hear. If your BMW is already past 120,000 miles on original transmission fluid And it has started showing symptoms like slight slipping under light throttle, delayed engagement when shifting into drive, or noticeably harsher shifts between gears. Do not change the fluid. At that stage, it can make things worse instead of better. By that mileage, the clutch packs inside the transmission have worn gradually over years of use. The transmission control module has adjusted hydraulic pressure to compensate. The entire system has adapted to the condition of the existing fluid. It isn't perfect, but it's stable. When you suddenly replace all of that aged fluid with fresh fluid that has different friction characteristics, you remove the environment the worn components had learned to operate within. The transmission may begin slipping more noticeably, shifts may feel inconsistent, and fault codes can appear shortly after the service. Owners often believe the fluid change caused the damage. In reality, the wear was already present. The service simply exposed it. This is why late maintenance is fundamentally different from timely maintenance. If a high-mileage BMW transmission is already compromised, the safer approach is often careful evaluation rather than automatic intervention. And once you understand when to leave it alone, the next mistake isn't about timing, it's about what you put back in, because the wrong fluid choice can quietly undo everything you just protected. Why aftermarket fluid can create new problems. Another area where BMW owners quietly make expensive mistakes is fluid choice. It's very common to hear, this fluid is fully compatible with ZF8HP, or it meets BMW specifications. On paper, that sounds fine. In practice, BMW transmissions are extremely sensitive to friction characteristics and pressure behavior. ZF calibrates shift timing, clutch engagement speed, and line pressure around very specific fluid chemistry. The additive package in genuine ZF Lifeguard fluid isn't just about lubrication. It controls how smoothly clutches grab, how quickly pressure builds, and how heat is managed inside the valve body. When a different fluid is introduced, even one that claims compatibility, subtle changes can occur. You might notice slightly firmer downshifts, minor flare between gears, or adaptation values drifting more than normal. Sometimes the transmission control module compensates. Sometimes it doesn't. Over time, inconsistent friction behavior can increase clutch wear and hydraulic stress. The savings from cheaper fluid are minimal compared to the cost of a transmission repair that can exceed $6,000. BMW transmissions are engineered with precision. They respond best to consistency. Using the correct ZF spec fluid removes uncertainty and preserves the environment the transmission was designed around. And that consistency leads directly into the only strategy that truly extends transmission life. The only strategy that actually extends transmission life. After years of seeing these gearboxes age, the pattern is clear. BMW transmissions do not fail because fluid was changed. They fail because fluid was changed too late, too aggressively, or not at all. The safest long-term strategy is simple and disciplined. If your BMW is under 80,000 miles and has not yet been serviced, schedule a proper service soon. Replace the pan and integrated filter if applicable. Use genuine ZF spec fluid and follow the correct temperature-based fill procedure. Do not rush it. Do not guess fluid level. These transmissions are sensitive to overfill and underfill. Once serviced, maintain a consistent interval around 60,000 to 70,000 miles. That keeps friction modifiers stable and hydraulic pressure predictable. If the car is already high mileage on original fluid, but still shifting perfectly, evaluate carefully before intervening. Stability sometimes matters more than ideal theory at that stage. Avoid power flushes unless the transmission has a documented service history from early life. Respect adaptation values and do not reset them unnecessarily. A BMW ZF transmission that is serviced correctly from early mileage can realistically exceed 200,000 miles without major internal repair. Transmission longevity isn't about myths or internet debates. It's about timing, consistency, and understanding how the system was engineered. Treat it properly from the beginning, and it will quietly reward you for years. BMW transmissions don't fail because they're weak. They fail because of confusion, bad timing, and misinformation. Service early at the right interval. Avoid aggressive flushes on aging gearboxes. Use proper ZF spec fluid. And don't panic once you're already past due. Transmission life is about balance and consistency, not reacting late. If this cleared things up for you, subscribe for more straight, experience-based BMW advice, and watch the next video where I break down the one maintenance mistake that quietly destroys BMW engines long before owners see a warning light.